Hello everyone, welcome to the Boleyn Lounge, another edition of our Tuesday talk show. Mick's been held up a little bit tonight, hopefully he'll be able to join us in a while, but I have got Budgie with me. Budgie, thanks for joining me, good to see you my friend.
Good evening Jeff, thank you for inviting me, always a pleasure to come on mate, and it's always good to see you.
You're always welcome, and likewise, always good to see you mate. So better get on with the show, there's a couple of games to cover. I mean, Liverpool, did you watch that game?
I did.
Budgie?
I watched it. Yeah, it was only on my phone, but I did watch it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we started off. We took a goal lead up there, didn't we? And they nicked an offside goal to get the equaliser. And early in the second half, we conceded, go 2-1 behind, and Salah comes on, makes it 3-1. I must admit, I did think Fabianski was a little bit unlucky with that third goal. I thought he made a decent save with his feet, and it just comes out to Salah, and he just absolutely rifled it past him. So there it was. Then Alvarez had a little bit
in that second ball.
Alvarez has a little bit of a rush to the head and makes a bit of a silly tackle, doesn't he? Gets himself his second yellow and sent off. And probably if we'd have seen the game out 3-1, come away with that result, we might have been saying, well, you know, we gave them a bit of a game and we were in it, and their equaliser was offside, and we'd sort of wipe ourselves down and move along and perhaps take a few positives out of it. But of course, on the 90th and 93rd minute, Gakpo steps up, makes it 4 and 5-1, and then we've got a repeat scoreline of what we had last year, which is obviously very disappointing all round. How did you see the game, Budgie? What did you feel about it on Wednesday night?
Well, I saw the lineup and I thought, okay, fair enough. You know, it's a cup game, and he wants to see what players he can rely on. I weren't too disappointed with the lineup, if I'm completely honest, but I rarely am, and that's the truth. I might be disappointed in maybe one or two of the players listed, but rarely disappointed with the entire lineup. But I think for the first half we more than held our own, and it really actually looked quite promising for the first 20 minutes. And I really felt that we might get a grip on the game. But then, as you said, you know, the second half came and we just completely lost it, completely. You know, there was no cohesion in the team at all. And I think it sort of says vast amount when the best player on the pitch was the defender, you know.
Yeah. Overall, though, after an absolute shambles against Chelsea, even though we got an absolute hiding at the end of it, the shape and the organisation at Liverpool seemed a lot better, I thought. And I think a lot of that was down to not trying to do too much, trying to be a bit more basic, perhaps a bit more what the players are used to. And I think they responded to that a little bit better. I don't know what your views are on that.
Yeah, I would say there was a bit of a response, but it just wasn't enough, Jeff. There was just no real desire to get into the game in the second half. It was almost like, a switch had been activated, and the team were okay. They tried for the first sort of 15 minutes of the second half, but there really wasn't anything to shout out about. Nothing.
I don't really know. I hear what you're saying. Once we go 3-1 down at Anfield in a place that we win once every 50 years, probably no surprise that heads go down a little bit. I would say.
Well,
Whether
yeah,
that's
of course. Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course there is
reason to
that.
defeat.
But last season, not this season, last season, beginning of last season, we went to Brighton, and we kind of exorcised our ghost of beating Brighton, and I was just hoping that would help us to kick on with other teams that we struggle against away. Liverpool being one of them. And for us to go 1-0 up in the manner that we did was very refreshing to see, and it was also the architect of our downfall, if you like, as well, because once Liverpool got the bit between their teeth, like Man City, like Chelsea, like Arsenal, once they do that, you got no response to it. That they've got the players available to them to create absolute bedlam for an opposing team.
Well, at the end of that result, my feelings, despite the scoreline being exactly the same as last year, were a bit different to how I was feeling at the end of the game last year. Did you find that with yourself, Budgie, or were you just equally disappointed
I think I
this
was
year?
more disappointed this year, if I'm honest, Jeff, because like now it's just becoming monotonous. We do really well in the opening stages of the Carabao Cup, or the Corrupt Cup, as it's being called by some. And then we get Liverpool or Man City or someone, and it just seems so monotonous, and we just know what the result's going to be. We can't tell you the actual final score, but we know what the end result will be, and yeah. I mean, we had to take it to penalties to beat Man City in that competition a few years back. 2 or 3 years back. It had to go to penalties, and so for me, penalties are just a wand, a wave of the stick, a wave of the wand. It either goes in or it don't. And there's a 50-50 chance that you're not going to score, in my opinion. I don't like penalties.
No, I'd say there's a more than a 50-50 chance for the penalty taker to score, but that shows how pessimistic you are about penalties, Budgie.
Well, yeah.
Well,
Pessimistic isn't really accurate, to be fair, Jeff. I don't like them. And, the fact that so many players get their scoring record through taking penalties, when, as you say, the odds are greater than 50-50. Of course they are. They're probably in high 80s. But, like, for me, penalties are, I mean, yes, I know they're a long-standing part of the game and they've always been there, but nothing really I don't know. There's nothing about penalties that really excites me. I just don't like them. Just, I'd rather goals came from great bit of play for me.
Well, it sounds like that was a depressing enough night for you. So perhaps we should move along, put that behind us. It's another year. Another year we're not going to win the League Cup. So that's that done and dusted. And we move on to Saturday's game against Brentford. I'll just say good evening to Adam. Adam, thanks for joining us. Really good to see you in the chat, mate. And against Brentford, they've scored in the first minute in their last 2 games, and they get the kick-off. They start quite frantically. They come at us, bounces in and around our box a little bit. Yeah, and ball comes across. Wan-Bissaka's caught a little bit ball watching, a little bit on his heels. His man gets in front of him. He knocks it back across the box, and Mabama, the danger man, seems to have found himself a little bit of space and takes his goal really nicely. You said 45 seconds. I had 37 seconds or something written. Whatever.
Oh, really?
It's another goal inside the first minute, right?
Yeah.
For Brentford. They've set a record, and it's just like West Ham to be the ones that will come along as the number 3 team and oblige you with that. But the game settled down. We came back more into it, and the halftime changes come along, which I'm sure we're going to probably talk about later on. I'm sure we're all a little bit surprised about that, but somehow, even with what seemed like somewhat odd changes, it seemed to improve us a little, I thought. But I'd be interested on what you think on that. And Thomas Souček steps up and gets his goal. Well, kind of scrambles it in, doesn't he? But the move leading up to the goals, actually a really nice bit of football. And Souček and Bowen exchange a little 1-2 on the edge of the box there. Breaks out to Antonio, scuffs his shot, and Souček's alive enough to get in front, his foot in front of the defender and poke the ball home. So well done, Thomas Souček. And we have another round of substitutions. It's been quite a common thing with Lopetegui. Seems intent on using all substitutions every game. But overall, it was probably a pretty even game the way I saw it. Sort of half chances mostly for both teams.
Yeah,
no problem. And overall, a fair result, I would say. And we might be a little bit disappointed with not winning the game at Brentford, but what I would say is that's actually the first point we've picked up in the Premier League at Brentford. So all said and done, overall, I don't think it's a bad point.
No, of course. And
but that's kind of my quick summary on the game. I kind of want to delve into it with some of the bits and pieces that went on and what you think about the substitutions and players' performances. But on the game itself, how did you see it? Did you see it much the same, or did you see it a little bit differently yourself?
No, I kind of agree with what you were saying there. I felt that a lot was made of the half-time signing, and
very good.
I'm not so convinced that there was words between Kudus and the manager, but we'll get into that. I'm not so convinced.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about that further.
But I think in general, yes, we were an improved side in the second half in some areas. And Thomas Souček, as you rightly said, came on and had a point to prove. And I think he proved
it. He started the game.
Oh, yeah, he did. He started the game. Sorry. Yes. But yeah, even still, I think he still had a point to prove. You know, he's kind of got silenced the doubters a little bit every week now. You know, and by getting vital goals like that, and vital knockdowns for somebody else and things like that, that's going to prove to us as fans why now 2 managers have shown a lot of, faith in him. And, I mean, we all know that he plays for this badge and that he wears his heart on his sleeve, etc. But, we're not always convinced of his ability. But he gets results. He does get results, and he kind of pops up with a goal when we really need one, So, but, I think there was a period in the second half where we kind of looked a bit like, we were ready to take the game in hand. And it took that late goal for us to get the equaliser. I felt we could have got one maybe at around about 55, 60 minutes when we started actually taking control of that midfield.
Souček scored on 54.
Was it 54?
Yeah.
Do you know,
Fulham was the late goal where we kind of robbed a draw.
Confused. I am getting confused. You're right. I've had so many things going on. Bloody hell. Sorry. 54 minutes. Yeah. Oh, well, in that case, that completely changes everything I just said. Everything. But, like, he
I'll
does.
have to double check that now, Budgie, because you've got me worried that I've used the wrong information. You carry on, mate. Let me look it up.
You're probably bloody right, Jeff. It's me. I and to be fair, I watch so much other stuff on YouTube, like when I'm at home. I do get confused with the amount of games I watch. So, like getting back to the game on Saturday, I think we had. I think we had kind of the right starting 11, but obviously something happened. Something was needed to be changed, and Kudos went off. That confused me quite a bit. It did confuse me a bit.
I think we're all probably a little bit surprised about that substitution, but I will, like I say, I'm sure we're going to talk about. I'd like to focus on a few players and a few things in that game.
Yep.
So, and obviously around the substitutions, and Kudos is one of them. So, that aside, carry on, mate.
Hang on, I think somebody's knocking on my door. Just bear with me for a sec, Jeff.
Okay, no worries, Budgie. I'll let you carry on, mate. Okay, so what we're going to do while Budgie's just there checking his door, I'm going to bring out some stats from the Brentford game, but also in comparison to our performances there for the last couple of seasons. And let me just add that to the screen now. Okay, I don't know if everyone can see that. I have to change my glasses again. So this year we had 43% possession, and with that possession we created 19 shots, of which 3 were on target, and we forced the goalkeeper to save 2 of those, and obviously scored with 1. And we had 6 corners to Brentford's 6. All right, Budgie, I don't know if you could hear me. I was just running through this slide here. Obviously, Brentford had 57% possession, and with that, they created 8 shots, of which 3 were on target, which Areola saved 2, and obviously they scored 1. And again, the corner count was 7 to our 6. So, relatively easy, even game that shows that we probably created more chances and had more efforts on goal, with an XG for us of 0.99. And for Brentford, limited to an XG of 0.37. So it looks a pretty good performance against those stats. If we compare them to the stats to the year before, where we lost 3-2, our XG, we actually had an XG of 1.82, but we did score 2 goals. And Brentford had an XG of 1.63, but scored 3 goals. We had 41% possession, so similar. And with that, created 12 shots and on target 2 of them. But we didn't force the goalkeeper into any saves and got 3 corners in the game, although we restricted Brentford to 4 corners in the game. And they've had 16 shots, created 4 on target, and goalkeeper makes 2 saves. Then the year before that, which we lose 2-0, we have 47% possession, so slightly more possession, but we're in around that. They're relatively 50-50 games if you come to it. Away team, if you end up with 40+% possession, you're pretty happy to call that near enough 50-50, aren't you? But with that, we only produced 4 shots. All of them were on target, and we forced the goalkeeper to save them all. But I don't know if that reflects the quality of our shots or the goalkeeper's saves.
Yeah. But I believe that was David Raya at the time.
And with their 50% possession, they had 24 shots on goal, 10 of them on target, and Areola saved 7 of them. Might have even been Fabianski in that game. No, it was Areola because they were only a few months apart actually.
No,
so Areola
4 by that slide. 4.
Areola saved 7, and Rayo would have saved 4.
Oh gosh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, my bad.
So and obviously we lost the previous games, and prior to that we've lost at Brentford as well. So we've picked up our first Premier League point at Brentford. It's not especially pretty. Stats don't make dreadful reading. And away from home, on a positive note, we're unbeaten. So it's okay.
Yeah.
I know people, we were just talking about the loss to Liverpool, but we don't include the loss of the win against Bournemouth when we talk about losing our opening 3 games. So just keep to the Premier League. We're unbeaten away from home. And we've picked up points at places where we got hammered last year and another place where we always lose. So that's the positive spin on the start to the season, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Evening, Jamie. Graphics are detailed, he says. Thank you very much. I hope you appreciate my efforts. So, moving on to the other things that come up through the game that probably worth talking about. Obviously, half-time substitutions. We have Emerson is taken off at half-time. But what did you think of his performance to warrant him to be taken off after the first?
He was fairly
45.
anonymous, I've got to be honest, which is most unlike him to be anonymous, I didn't understand it. I really didn't. But listen, the manager, the coach, saw something that we didn't see. So, I didn't see, that's for sure.
Well, I must admit, I've been a little bit concerned about Emerson defensively, probably since the back end of last season and certainly during pre-season. But in his defence, I do think he's been left a little bit exposed at times this season, and I think the Fulham game was one of them where he got absolutely battered and bruised up against Traore and had very little protection, I felt, in front of him there. So, and I do wonder if that's some of the thing when Lopetegui refers to playing as a team and with Kudus in that respect, but I'm going to park the Kudus bit at the minute and just keep on about Emerson. So that's my thoughts. But he took him off at half time, and he moved AWB across to left back. And he did very well there, didn't he, for the second 45 for a right back.
Yeah.
And leads into Mavropanos coming on to replace AWB at right back. And what did you think of his 45 minutes at right back, Budgie?
Well, I've got to be honest with you, I wasn't expecting the performance he gave. I thought he was admirable. Well, more than admirable, if I'm honest. I felt he handled the role very well, if I'm honest with you. Maybe that's a decent position for him, you know, with his defensive work rate as well. You know, maybe that's a position worth considering for him. You know?
Okay. Well, I tend to agree with you. I think he did do very well for 45 minutes there. And he actually looked less uncomfortable out there than he does. So I do think Mavropanos looks at times a little bit uncomfortable on the ball and not sure what to do with it. But it just seemed to be a little bit more comfortable in that right back role, and he did it very well. My only caveat I would put on it that his unnecessary, unpressured, careless pass this game only resulted in a throw-in, and unfortunately it's those kinds of unforced errors that put us on the back foot and cost us goals all too often. So even though his performance I do think was good, he still managed to show the Mavro error that he's got in him every single game.
Yeah, agreed.
But then there's the Kudus thing. What did you think? What do you think of that? What was your thoughts on that? I'll just say good evening to Colin. Good evening, Colin. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining.
I'm completely bemused. I have no idea why he took him off. He's undoubtedly one of the best players in the team, and he wasn't playing that badly, I didn't think. I felt he had a little bit about him. Clearly not on the levels that he was on last season, but still working hard to try and make things happen. And, you know, he was replaced. So, you know, there are rumours, of course, that there was a bust up in the changing rooms. I don't know how true those rumours are. I'm not going to really comment on that because I don't know about it, and I don't particularly subscribe to that train of thought either. I don't know that Lopetegui would be that petty that he would take a player off for having a disagreement with him. Unless it was a tactical disagreement, of course, you know.
Well, Lopetegui said it was tactical, but I mean, at the end of the day, whether it was, whether it wasn't, it may have been a tactical decision. It may be that he wants to paint it as a tactical decision, and there's whatever speculation, as you've said from him. Truth is, probably we'll never really get to the bottom of it. But I'll touch on some of that stuff out in the dressing room and the other bits and pieces that are going on in the background off the pitch, if you like. Perhaps a bit later on, when we've gone through all the players and incident within the Brentford game. But so you were confused at him being taken off. You felt like he did quite a lot in the game, and I can kind of get back to you and just say, as I alluded to earlier, that one of the things I wonder again, it's just the way I'm kind of reading what Lopetegui said, and it's just my speculation, slightly different to others. But like I said, I thought that I noticed in the Fulham game, I thought Emerson's in for a hard day today. He's got Traore up against him, and in the very first minute, if you go back and watch it, Kudus kind of half tracks Traore to about 10 yards outside the 18-yard box, and then he just kind of lets him go, Emerson. And I thought, oh,
Yeah.
this is you set up for an afternoon, son. And it kind of turned out like that. Now, I don't think for 1 minute that Kudus is lazy, because I think what I'm saying about him not tracking his player could be conceived as being lazy. And I don't think he's lazy. I think he works really, really hard for the team. I think he's really busy, and I think he does loads of things brilliantly well. But I just wonder if not tracking a player and just letting a player run off his shoulder and one thing or another a little bit too easily, and resulting in perhaps Emerson being a bit exposed, especially if you look at some of the opponents we've faced. Maybe that is what he was alluding to when he said we were more of a team in the second half rather than Kudus isn't a team player. Now, again, I don't really know. This is just my musings on it. But I have noticed that about Kudus a little bit. And I do think he will get his foot in and win the ball. And when he gets hold of that ball, he draws players to him. And it's absolutely amazing how he comes out of it in them tight spots with 3 players around him. And I do think perhaps sometimes he needs to release that ball a bit quicker, because if he's got 3 players around him, there's got to be space somewhere on the pitch, and there's got to be space for someone else. So perhaps working on finding us moving into the spaces that he can pass into to make it beneficial to us, and him being aware of that and trying to release the ball perhaps a little bit quicker. But I think that's just something that's going to come on a training pitch as the team starts gelling a bit together, and perhaps we start seeing the patterns of play that we're all crying out for, but we've seen very little of, only in very small snippets, I would suggest.
Yeah, I agree, and like, as you said, Kudus is far from a lazy player. I mean, he believes that he can do the job himself, more or less. He's a confident player, which partially is the reason why he is able to get out of triangular corners with 3 players around him, with the ball intact at his feet.
Yeah, incredible.
He's very clever, and I think he works hard at his craft. But 2-0, Arsenal have just gone up 2-0.
Oh yeah, mine froze. I'm not bothering with it.
All right. It's actually on. Was it on Prime? Yeah. But I think, he's far from lazy. He does work hard. He works hard on the training ground. I've seen footage of him on the training ground. He works as hard as anyone else, if not harder. And he's good at what he does. He is very good at what he does. And to replace him at half time for tactical reasons really sort of sticks in my throat to say it, because why would you replace a player that's capable of so much, and call that a tactical choice?
Well, I mean, a kind of nice sort of segue, really, leading into the player who replaced him, who perhaps of all the things, if we were surprised that Kudus was getting hooked at half time, that was one thing. When we found out that, I would think most people would have expected Somerville to be the one who was replacing him if that was the case, but we found out that it was Soler that was replacing him. That probably raised people's eyebrows even further.
Yeah.
But that said, what did you think of Soler's performance? I mean, he wasn't out on the left for the entirety of the game, was he? He went out there for a few minutes, then he kind of swapped him over with Paquetá, and the other changes came. But what did you make of his 45 minutes?
I wasn't disappointed with it, to be fair. You know, I thought he played reasonably well. We've seen now why we got him, because he is a very capable player. I don't think he had the best of 45 minutes because of the complexity of the game, if you like. It kind of swung a little bit either way, and I think he's more comfortable when he's on the ball rather than defending. But having said that, his defensive capability was on display as well, and it was reasonable. It was reasonable. You know, I would have, if I was rating the players, I probably would have rated his second half higher than Thomas Soucek's, if I'm honest. Even though Soucek got the goal.
I mean, I think I tend to. I don't know about the rating side of things, but in terms of what he looks like as a player and the 45 minutes he had, I think I tend to agree with you. I think he looks pretty mobile. He's fitter than I thought he was going to be, because I know when he arrived, he hadn't had much football leading up to that. The same with Todibo, and I've been saying for weeks, as you know, the reason Todibo hasn't played, in my opinion, is he hasn't been fit. He looks fit now, but we'll come on to him. But I do think Soler actually looks like he's arrived fitter than Todibo did, and I've been quite pleased with what I've seen him prior. I think he had a good 45 minutes, and he looks like he's got a pass in him. He had a lovely little turn there, didn't he?
Yeah.
Sold himself and just lost a player. Yeah, I agree with you. He puts a tackle in. He just overall, he looks cultured, which is one of the things that we can't really attribute to Thomas Soucek. We can say about Soucek he's effective, but we couldn't necessarily say that he was cultured. And I think that Soler could well be effective and a little bit cultured. So I think he could actually be a big part of the team going forwards. And I have to hold my hands up, because when we did our transfer show in the last international break, and I kind of said, I don't really understand the Soler move to the degree of his wages being 240 grand a week, and I don't see how we're going to sign him. But I'm not sure if that was completely correct, and I've kind of looked into that a bit more, and I think his wages are more in the region of around 80k a week, which, even if he came to us with a pay rise, I mean, that's not out of reach for West Ham, perhaps. So let's hope, if that's the case, that his wage structure is more along those lines, on the affordable lines for West Ham, and he has a really good season on loan for us. And I'd be looking forward to seeing what he can do for us going forwards.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. I mean, I think Soler is looking like the kind of player that would really suit West Ham's style. He looks like a player that is capable of, switching it up. So, like he could play like as a defensive mid one week and then as an attacking mid the next. I think he's quite versatile in that midfield.
Yeah, I agree. I think he looks versatile too.
Yeah. I think if there was any truth in the conversation about the 240 grand, that would have probably have been like, we'll give you 240 grand as a sweetener to come, but we'll give you 100 grand a week wages or something. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I saw it reported that was his wages on 240
Yeah,
grand a
but
week. And I say
a lot
I've
of
looked
people do
into
at
it,
the
and I'm
time.
not sure that it's as accurate. It's one of those, Badgie. We're all guilty of it sometimes. We read something somewhere, go right, and we kind
Oh yeah,
before we
mate,
look
but a
a bit
lot of
further.
people reported these wages at that sort of level, at
Yeah,
the 230 plus mark. You know,
yeah.
um,
So I'm not
so
sure
you
about
know,
that. But anyway, kind of
it's not
irrelevant.
that you made any error or anything. You were just reporting the same things that everybody else had been told, and you've
Well,
done your own work. You've realised the
the
error, as
error of
it
my
were.
ways.
There's no reason to retract what you said, because at the time it's what everybody believed, you know.
If if that
So
was the wage structure, I believe what I was saying to be correct. Like, I think that is out of reach for West Ham, and I don't see how he fits into us in the future. If
yeah,
that turns out not to be the case, and the wages are realistic and achievable for West Ham, of course, why wouldn't we want a footballer that he looks like he's going to turn out to be? If he keeps doing what he's doing for us. But moving on from him, we get on to Paquetá. Um,
uh-huh.
I'd like, obviously, lots of focus on his reaction because he was substituted. I'm sure you've got an opinion on that. And also, like yourself, I've kind of watched some other channels and other forums, and there seems to be mixed reviews on Paquetá's performance. Some thinking he was pretty decent, and some thinking he was pretty poor. So I was just wondering, where do you sit on the scale? What's your opinion on his performance on Saturday?
Well, we're not seeing the Paquetá performances from last season or the season before. However, it was a better performance this week against Brentford than it was in previous weeks of this season, previous games. So he is picking his game up. I will say that. I still don't believe he's at his best, and I'm not sure that we're going to see his best until the conclusion of this case against him. I think that's quite heavy on his shoulders. And, you know, I believe that, you know, he's being very careful about what he does while he's on the pitch because of that. You know, he doesn't want to pick up cards and stuff at the moment because, you know,
I don't know, Budge. I mean, he came
yeah,
on against Fulham, and the first thing he did, or one of the first things he did, was kick Traore. So
yeah, but I'm
he's
not being funny. Everybody wants to kick him, even us buggers that are too old to get our boots on. We all want to kick him. No, all right, yeah, but I still feel that, you know, that this case hanging over him is heavy on his shoulders. You know, regardless of anything else, that must be affecting him mentally, and therefore it must be affecting his performance levels. I would kind of call for patience on him, if you know what I mean, because we know what he's capable of. Yeah, but
I've got a bit of a
we don't know
theory
what his
on.
mindset is.
I've got a bit of a theory on Paquetá, but I'll deal with his performance first. I'm. I don't think he was really poor. It was a dreadful performance from him, but I'm not sure that I see it in the same way as those who were singing his praises and thought he had a good performance. I thought some of his passing was poor at times.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not too worried about his reaction about being pulled off, shaking his head. He's disappointed. Um, I don't know if he's upset with his own performance or if he's upset about the tactical decisions or the way he's been set out to play, or the fact, he doesn't agree with the manager. And I don't kind of really care. I don't expect any player, if we're 3-0 up, someone's had a great game and they're taking the adulation off the crowd and they're coming off with a big grin on their face. Of course, I want to see that. I'm happy. But actually, I'm not unhappy to see players not happy about being substituted. Same
No,
as
I'm
I'm
not.
not that unhappy about alleged dressing room stuff, but again, we'll move on to that later. But my theory about Paquetá is when he arrived here, he wasn't all that great for a while, and we all said, "Oh, he's adjusting to the Premier League," and this, that, and the other. And then the back half of the season, he was superb, and he's the player, and he's found his feet. And then he started the season really well, the way he left off, and then he fell off the back half of the season. And now, and he has got all this betting stuff and all that hanging over his head. So, absolutely, it cannot not be a factor in his life. We don't know how much it's affecting his performance.
Yeah.
But I just wonder, with that, just that aside, it could be just completely that. I just wonder if, he's a bit of a half a season player, and you get your kind of abject Paquetá spells, and then you get your really good Paquetá spells.
Yeah. I mean, there is also, the belief out there as well that Paquetá's performances started dropping off a little bit once the interest from Manchester City was, kind of confirmed and, advanced, if you like. And I believe that because he was unable to move to Man City, that might also have played on his mind as well. Because like any other player, he's got aspirations and stuff he wants to achieve, stuff that he might not be able to achieve at West Ham United. Like Premier League titles, Champions League titles, those kinds of things. So maybe that might have a small part to play in the drop of performance last season and this.
Possibly. I've just I displayed your comment a minute ago, Colin, but I've starred that. We'll come back to that because I'm sure we're going to, as we said, we'll talk about stuff like that further on. Just going to wrap up with the players I wanted to focus on. So the next one that I think is worth a mention and a spotlight on is Todibo. We finally saw him in the Premier League. Obviously, we saw him midweek, and. Well, I mean, I think he looks pretty solid. Some have said his weaknesses is in the air a little bit. He looks stronger in the air than Agard, doesn't he? That's for sure. So I'm pretty happy with what I've seen of him. He looks so much more comfortable and confident in the ball, on the ball in that position than Mavropanos does, and it makes me immediately feel a little bit more relaxed and a little less on the edge of my seat to see that. He does his little swivel thing that looks absolutely fantastic, by the way, when it comes off. But he does seem to do it with quite a lot of frequency. So I hope he's not made to look foolish when he does that one day and get robbed of possession in a poor area. But when it comes off, that looks great. And he's another one that, if we were saying about Soler, looks cultured. I think he's another one that looks like he's going to be a really cultured footballer. I don't know what your thoughts are, Budgie, but if you've got anything to expand on that, fill your boots, mate.
Okay, thank you. Well, when he first came to us, when we first linked with him, when he first arrived and the announcement was made, I looked into him because he came with high expectation, in my opinion, because he was hyped up quite a lot by some in the media. Yeah, and I'm talking about mainstream media, like the BT Sports and Sky Sports of the world. And he came with quite high praise, So I looked into him a bit and I looked at as many games of his that I could find. And I've got to be completely honest with you. I was actually really shocked that we'd got him because he looked like he was the real deal, you know. And his introduction to West Ham, into games at West Ham, has been, I would call it, slow and precise, because he's come from, one league to another with a higher intensity of play, and he's the sort of player that's comfortable with time on the ball. As you mentioned, his little spin around and that, because he's used to having that little bit more time on the ball. He's going to learn one day, hopefully not to our detriment, that he's not going to get so much time on the ball in the Premier League.
Much like Rodriguez has found out.
Other than that, Jeff, I really don't have anything negative to say about him. I wish him all the best, mate, because I think he's, as you said, cultured. He's experienced, and he's also, funnily enough, he's captain material because he's very vocal.
What I will say is, I'm not sure if we said it. I said it on this show last week or the week before, but we touched on the Todibo thing and the rumours about he's freezing him out because he don't want to play 5 games. They've seen something they don't like, and if he plays 5 games, we're going to have to buy him and blah blah blah. Yeah. And I said at the time, and I've been saying for weeks, as I said earlier, in my opinion, he's not played because he hasn't been fit. I don't buy into the 5-6 game thing and all the rest of it. Now, maybe there is something in all of that, but after seeing the performance midweek and on Saturday, I fully expect he's going to become a fixture in that back 4. And I think the 5 or 6 games, whatever it is that he has to start or appear in the Premier League, will rack themselves up pretty damn quickly, and that little rumour can be parked and put to bed and forgotten about altogether, I think.
Yeah.
But I never believed it anyway.
Excuse me. No, there is something also to be said for, historically, loan deals are done for one of 2 reasons. Try before you buy, or let's fill this gap because we've got nobody. So let's just go and get a loan player. Todibo was neither. Todibo was not the latter. He was not one of these emergency signings to plug a hole. So for me,
he comes with an obligation, doesn't he? So which is different,
Yeah, and so for me, he was always a try before you buy. Let's do it within the FFP rules or whatever the case may be. We'll do it on a loan deal. We'll pay what was it, 4 million for his loan, something like that.
I don't know the details. I'd have to look it up, Budgie, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm not sure what it was, but I know it wasn't as much as Jesse Lingard's, which was 7, I believe.
That's Calvin Phillips, wasn't it? I don't know.
I'm sorry, Calvin Phillips. Yeah, sorry.
But I don't think that was ever 7 either. I think it was potentially up to 7.
Yeah.
And I think he had to achieve certain things for that to happen. And I mean, clearly, whatever goals were set, they must have been pretty low bars if he managed to reach them. Anyway, moving on to the final player, I think is worth a mention for a couple of reasons. And that's Andy Irving. Firstly, I think he deserves a mention because if we'd have placed the imaginary bet that we spoke about, we'd have lost already, wouldn't we? Because we agreed that Andy Irvine would not play more than 15 minutes of Premier League football this season, and he's racked up a grand total of 19 minutes now. So fair play to him, by the way. I really didn't expect to see him. I'm not sure what the future or what the role is for Andy Irvine, because he came on against Chelsea, didn't he? And sort of the game was over and it was done and dusted. So I don't think he was really put under too much pressure or duress. And he had a couple of minutes at the weekend coming on. So we'll see.
I don't think there was any real high expectation for that appearance.
No. But on the back of this, it would seem he's earned himself his first senior Scotland call-up.
Yeah.
Which sounds remarkable as well. But I do think that Scotland have got some injury troubles in their squad. So perhaps it's just one of those things, and he's going to get his place in the squad, but maybe not get any appearance. Good luck to him, I say.
Yeah, but the Scottish pool of players is so much smaller than most other nations, But Andy Irvine, bless him, he earned himself a slot in the squad, and we'll support that. As West Ham fans, we'll support that.
No, all the best to him. I'm kind of a bit tongue in cheek and making jokes about it, but I'm not making a joke of him. Good luck to him, and let's hope he does brilliantly well for West Ham in a West Ham shirt. You've got a feel for the guy, haven't you? He was bought last year and never announced, sent out on loan and basically forgotten about. Brought back off of loan and no one really acknowledged he was here. All of a sudden he's in the squad, gets a couple of pre-season games, and now he's getting minutes in the Premier League. So good luck. And looking at Rodriguez treading water at times, you wonder, could he do any worse?
Exactly that. And the thing is, I think if you look at Andy Irvine's, he's got quite a decent attacking brain about him as well. So, he's capable of a decent pass. And, something has to be said for him going out on loan last season, because he's come back and now he's being looked at for the game day squad, and there are one or two others, other channels I should say, that are actually saying, would Irvine be considered for a start now? With the way that he's, shown himself in the minutes that he's had.
What I'd say is, I don't know, because I don't know enough about the lad, if I'm perfectly honest. And all I've seen of him is really a little bit in pre-season, one of the games that I was not largely impressed with him.
Yeah.
And then I saw him come on against Chelsea in and again, I don't think he did anything wrong, and I think he did everything well, but I'm not sure if the game was being played at full pace at that point. And again, he's came on just sort of 90th minute this weekend. He's got an appearance and he's got a few minutes, and it's not really much opportunity to make much judgment on his performance in a full-blooded Premier League game. So what I say is, I honestly don't know, and until we see in more competitive circumstances, I don't think any of us really do. But I'm not poo-pooing it. I Just don't
No.
know. What's your thoughts on it, Budgie?
Very similar to yours, mate. But like he seems to be quite a level-headed sort of guy. I think I think if he's around the first team squad enough, he can grow into being a squad member on a regular basis, and maybe getting the occasional start in cup games or dead rubbers if we ever
Perhaps
get
we
to
should
any.
see if he comes back from the international break without any injuries, and then we can revisit the conversation about whether he should get a start or not.
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice to
It's
come
just
back with
West Ham's luck for him to start for Scotland and get himself injured, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but it would be equally typically West Ham for him to go get 15, 20 minutes on the pitch and then get an assist for the winning goal or something.
You never know.
It would be
Anyway,
typically
moving
West
on
Ham,
to our player roundup.
Yep.
Unless you've got any other players from the Brentford game that you'd like to focus on, anything that we haven't covered on their performances or outlook.
Only the fact that Bowen has looked jaded a little bit recently. He hasn't been putting in his best performances. And I know that he has got some personal issues going on at home with his children.
I've heard about that.
So, I suppose, that may have a large part to do with it, I would have thought.
If we're going to suggest, I mean, they're very different things, but we're going to suggest that Paquetá could be, his performances could be affected by him worrying about his future.
Mm-hmm.
And the consequences of what the outcome of the hearing may be.
Yeah.
It's perfectly reasonable to think that could affect him. And if there's some issues with things at home and any health concerns about anyone in his family circle, I don't think it's unreasonable to equally that could affect his performance on the pitch. We don't know if it's a form thing or if there's outside factors, but it has to be considered.
I mean, look, Jeff, you've played football, haven't you, at some kind of level? Most guys have, most of us that love the game have played the game, and, I mean, look, even at the lowest of levels, like local league level and stuff, like back in the day, splitting up with your girlfriend and that, you didn't feel great on the Sunday or Saturday afternoon or whatever the case may be. You didn't feel great because your girlfriend and you had just split up or whatever, and you didn't play as well. You didn't play as well. You know that you could have made a better game of it if you had been fully focused on it. So at professional level, that's got to be intensified 100 times because not only are you wanting to perform, you're expected to perform as well.
Yeah. And this is the thing, they're professionals, right? And it's easy to say, oh, well, they're professionals and they should be able to, but they're also human beings, right? And they're affected by the same things that you and I and anybody else is affected by that could impact on their performance, right? From outside factors. So I think it's okay to acknowledge that.
I mean, equally though, Jeff, let's just go back 2 or 3 years when Andrei Yarmolenko scored that winning goal against Chelsea. The whole stadium felt the emotion of that, the significance of that moment. The whole stadium felt it, and many of those watching it on TV as well, I would imagine. when who was it? It was Russ that said that the stadium announcer had said, and that's a goal for West Ham and Ukraine. And like everybody in the audience applauded it, or something. It was something like that anyway. But and we saw how emotional he was when he dropped to his knees and all
Just
the players
release,
surrounded him and that. It kind of brought the emotion right there for all to see,
Yeah, definitely. There are things outside of football, right?
Of course there are.
That's the point.
I mean, professional or not, your life isn't just, steered by your profession. Your private life and your home life is everything.
Yeah, absolutely. They're human beings, like I say, the same as the rest of us.
Yeah.
Colin, I see you've put your team up there. We probably will get round to talking about the Ipswich game, but I'll come back to your other comment in a minute regarding some of the off-field stuff that we haven't touched on yet. And I know that you wanted to talk about that earlier, Budgie, and we've had a little bit of it, haven't we? We've had a bit of a week of it with Stighton coming out and saying how he chose Lopetegui, and part of the reason was his style of football, and etc., etc., etc. in a pre-match interview. And by the end of that weekend, Stighton was apparently warning Sullivan that he shouldn't employ, and it wasn't his pick. And we had who's picked who in the summer transfer can of worms opened again, and this one briefing against that one, etc., etc., etc. And now we are full circle round from the boardroom fallout and who said what to who to the dressing room fallout. Apparently, between what's happened at halftime or after halftime, regards Kudus, Lopetegui, perhaps one of the assistant managers, etc., etc. So quite a lot to deal with there. That's gone off of the pitch.
Yeah.
I'll let you take your pick at what you'd like to address, and
well, let's have a look at Colin's
Budgie.
comment about
I'm just
it.
going to Colin. I'll put Colin. I think Colin was referring to the dressing room, if I remember rightly. So let's put his comment up there. I've got to change my glasses again. So Colin's saying what he knows is that Lopetegui was angry in the dressing room and made suggestions certain players were not working for the team. And when Kudus knew that he was being subbed, Kudus had a heated clash that he had to be held back. I think that means I've seen that said that he had to be held back. So that's Colin's what he's.
Well, the thing is, Colin,
it's pretty much along the lines what I've heard. So
yeah. Well, Colin has got some contacts in the club, I believe, or a contact in the club, I believe. So this is probably about as close to the truth as we're getting, I would say.
Okay, so
I'm pretty confident that Colin wouldn't put that up unless that's what he's specifically heard. So not that I know him, but
it is widely what's being suggested.
Right.
Broadly speaking, that's what's being suggested elsewhere as well, isn't it?
Mm.
So, right, what's your views on that, Budgie? I'm just going to have to go and get myself a drink, mate. But I'll let you.
Go for it. Go for it. Well, I think that like we spoke about earlier, that a player shaking his head or something when he's being substituted isn't unhealthy. I think it kind of shows that they care, that they feel that they've got something to offer, and so on and so forth. Whereas if Colin's comment is 100% accurate, then I can understand why Lopetegui would be put out or upset or angry about it even. I mean, the thing is, it's his job to pick the team and to make the substitutions, etc. And a player can question, why am I being sub, Gaffer? There's no harm in that because that shows they care. But to explode and have a heated clash where you're being held back, I think that's going too far, and that's being a little bit more of a selfish approach to the game, where he might be believing it's all about him. So we would have to know the full details of it, and we would have to know, the outcome of it as well, to know how best to sort of judge what happened. I mean, at the moment we're going on hearsay and some information that coming from various sources. Very difficult to make judgment on.
Yeah, it is. And here's the thing. We don't really know that it's anything worse that goes on in any dressing room up and down the country on any Saturday or Sunday afternoon, or perhaps at the end of a training session at the training ground where people don't see eye to eye, things get a little bit heated. This happens in football clubs, in football teams. We just live in this world now where absolutely every little thing comes out. And for me, this is one of the things that hasn't changed at our football club, although the regime has, because if you look at how everyone was manoeuvring just a week ago and briefing against each other at the very top of the club, that is and did really fuel the discussions about will Lopetegui get sacked or not get sacked, how much pressure is in, this dissatisfaction amongst the fan base being almost exaggerated and encouraged. All of this stuff, drip, drip, drip out of the top of the club. And last year we had stuff coming out of the dressing room, and this year we've got stuff coming out of the dressing room. We're half a dozen games in, right? And I can't wait to spill their guts about the first little bit of upset or discontent about this one, that one, and I think that's a part of the problem. It shouldn't be. Some things like they're in the dressing room. They stay in the dressing room.
Yeah. I mean, what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
It's that kind of thing, right? But it shouldn't really be repeated and revealed, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. And, one of the things that is frustrating is that, and, I'm guilty of it, you're guilty of it, anybody that does this YouTube malarkey is guilty of it. We microanalyze every single thing. Everything. Like, for example, a player, when they're talking with their hand in front of their mouths, they're doing that for a reason, because they don't want people microanalyzing or misinterpreting what they're saying, and it's got to that point, like you said, with the social media and everything else, where people are having to protect themselves from micro-analysis,
Well, I mean, we've got it very much so. What with Lopetegui, everyone's trying to analyse what Lopetegui's saying regarding the team player comments, and everyone's analysing that. It's saying they've got one sort of narrative to follow, and I just don't think it's healthy.
No,
really,
it's not. And the thing is,
Di Canio's just I just put his comment up there, but he's basically echoing what I've just said. He's saying what concerns him is there is a grass in the changing room, and rows will happen in every club, and that's basically exactly what we've just been saying.
Yeah, and in fairness, if it's happening in the changing rooms,
Okay, Colin's got something to it. I don't know if you saw Colin's comment there. I've just seen it there. He says, also, he says he knows from his sources that Paquetá and Antonio got involved in that clash. So,
right?
well, I mean, I haven't heard anything about that so far. So it's news on me, Colin. And if you know more about that, or you're prepared to say any more about that, then I'd be interested to know what that involved.
Yeah, that sounds quite meaty, doesn't it?
Sorry, mate. I didn't mean to
Really?
interrupt you.
No, it's fine. I have forgotten where I was at, but it's not important.
Yeah, I mean, again, you don't know. You don't know. Well, perhaps we should leave all of the off field stuff and the rumours to others, and perhaps concentrate on our upcoming game against Ipswich. Could be a tough game on Saturday. I've made a little slide here. I like to do these things, Budgie.
I agree with you. It could be, but I think that should be replaced with will be a tough game.
Yeah.
They've managed a point from 4 out of 5 of their games. They haven't been beaten yet. Is that right?
No, they have been beaten. They've lost to. I think they've lost to City and Liverpool, though.
Oh, right.
So I think they lost to Liverpool on the opening day. They lost 2-0. I watched a bit of that game, actually, and for large parts, they were pretty competitive in that game. Liverpool just sort of cream came to the top, if you like, and they're just a better side. And they won 2-0 in the end. But no, they give Liverpool a good opening day. I thought it might be a tricky one for Liverpool, opening day at Portman Road and all that. But no, they beat them. Then they lost to City, and since that, they've drawn at home to Fulham, away to Brighton, away to Southampton, and in their last game against Aston Villa. So, I mean, they've not won a game yet, but they're proving difficult to beat, clearly.
Yeah.
City brushed them aside, obviously.
Like you mentioned earlier, you alluded to earlier, West Ham are the sort of team that will give them their first 3 points. Let's hope not.
Canio says Phillips to score. Let's hope that's not a nightmare come true.
No, he nearly did at the weekend.
And Colin says, gentlemen, they said words to Loppy backing up Kudus through what he knows. So that is interesting, because I have that just reminded me, actually, I have heard some rumours that some of the players have been a little bit unhappy. So maybe that backs that up, if what Colin's saying there is that they were backing up Kudus. So I don't know. We'll have to see how that unravels over the coming weeks, because that probably
that'll be ongoing for a little while.
Yeah, and it could be an unhealthy thing if it festers. So let's hope that's not the case. DiCanio is saying if we don't win, the pressure will ramp up on Lopetegui. Can't have 4 home games in a row without a win. And he's right. If we don't win, the pressure really will be ramping up on Lopetegui. We do need to win this. We need to get our first home win of the season. I actually think we will. I must say, and I'll come on to that. We'll it's not too much information on there. It's just it's early season stuff. But and even their injuries, I think I'm not that aware of their team, but I'm not sure that they're critical injuries for them. But I may be wrong. This is how they lined up in their last game, Ipswich. Now I can't see the comments when I put this up.
Yeah, that's right. We'll talk about this and then we'll go back to the comments.
Yeah. So I think we've got some areas. I watched a little bit of Ipswich. Did you watch Ipswich this weekend, Budgie? I watched a little bit of it.
I only watched highlights, to be fair.
Okay. One of the things I noticed, Leif Davis at left back. A few fans were keen on him last year. Good young player, actually. He's quite important to Ipswich. I think he brings quite a lot to them, but he's young and a little bit inexperienced in the Premier League. And I have noticed a couple of times that he's got a few mistakes in him, and I think that that's something that we need to exploit. And Calvin Phillips in the middle of the park this weekend, I also noticed that he's also got a little bit of a weak tackle and a little bit of a misplaced pass still in him. So hopefully that's something that we can exploit as well in the middle of the park. And Sam Morsey, he's a really competitive midfield. He's got 4 bookings in 6 games, and I actually thought he might have been a little bit fortunate to avoid a second yellow at the weekend. So I also think he's someone who could possibly be a bit of an accident waiting to happen. Perhaps they're kind of Alvarez type character that perhaps could be tempted into 2 yellows or something like that. But he is combative. But yeah, 4 bookings in 6 games for them. So that's interesting. Young Jack Clark, another one we were linked with. He played in the last game. He's a tricky player, but you'd like to think if Wan-Bissaka's played in a right back role that entails him carrying out right back duties and concentrating on right back duties, you would think that he should have the better of Clark over 90 minutes. And equally, Ogbene, I don't know if Emerson's going to start this week. I don't know what the status with if he's still suffering with a bit of a knock, or if it's a form thing and whether Lopetegui will pick him. But if he does, I expect him to have a little bit easier weekend of it against Ogbene. I think Ogbene he was at Luton last year, and I don't think he offers quite as much as some of the right wingers that he's faced in recent weeks. But I think one player who I am impressed with and really we need to keep an eye on is young Liam Delap. And I do wonder, I think this is where our scouting system and identifying players seems to fall down. I mean, he's got 3 goals in 6 games in the Premier League. He arrived from Manchester City for under 21s for like 15 million quid, I think it was. Done a couple of loan spells wherever it was.
Yeah.
In my view, this is the sort of player we should be looking to snap up, and sort of that kind of money. It's almost someone you feel like you might be able to take a gamble on.
Yeah. And he's proven to be quite handy so far this season already.
He's looked really effective for them, and he's mobile. He knows where the goals is. He's quite physical. He's just got just about everything you probably want from a number 9, and 15 million quid. I think he's pretty good. Anyway, I'm gonna make it so I can see the comments and leave that on the screen. If there's if there's anything I've missed that you feel like you want to.
No, mate. No, I couldn't read them names on there anyway.
Oh, could you not? Oh, you're on your phone, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll put our team up in a minute. I'll just put Colin's comment. He says he wants a win against Ipswich, but he's not so confident as he normally is. I think it's going to be harder than we think. Aston Villa struggled against them. Yeah, I didn't watch the entire game. I listened to a little bit of it on the radio, and it sounded like Villa really had the best of it in the first half against them. Perhaps didn't make the most of it. And I did get to watch the second half, but they were impressive, Ipswich, and even perhaps trying to press for a winner in the end once they got themselves back into it.
Yeah.
So I do think it's going to be a difficult game. I do agree with Colin, but I do think that there may be a slightly different beast away from home. They've picked up points and they've done really well. I think they're quite resolute. They must be, because they got absolutely battered against Brighton, dominated against Brighton, and came out of that with a 0-0. But I just wonder if they offer as much attacking threat away from home.
Maybe not as much attacking threat as some teams, but
Yeah,
like
this is what I mean.
That young Liam Delap, is it?
Yeah, I do like him, I must admit.
He's a threat. He's as much of a threat to any team as, the likes of Hoyland, Haaland, any of these, decent number nines. And I'm hoping that Fulkrug is going to be that kind of threat. But we know he is. So, as far as attacking prowess is concerned, I think they've pretty much got it nailed down, really. It's just whether the supply to him is as good as it could be, But,
I do think that Emerson and AWB and the like should have a bit of an easier afternoon against Ogbenny and Jack Clark than they've had against some of the opposition we've faced so far.
Of course, yeah. And I think that, the likes of Emerson and, Bowen will do a bit of backtracking if he's out on that wing as well. And I think, Wan-Bissaka, look, we've been told he ain't that great going forward, but that's not what I've seen. I've seen him being reasonably effective. He's great in defence, and he's good at getting up.
Just need a bit of end. I think it's his end product. So his figures going forward, I think maybe they don't look so good because he doesn't cross the ball in and then get assists, perhaps. But one thing I like about Wan-Bissaka, I think he carries the ball up the pitch absolutely superbly well.
Yeah, really, really well. In fact,
as long as once he gets up in the attacking half, if he gives it off to Bowen, Soler, whoever it is, he's going to lay the ball off to, and they're the ones that do a bit of damage or get the assist. I really don't care. I don't care if my fullback's not got how many assists but if he defends properly and he can carry the ball up like he can, fine for me. Just before I go through the West Ham team, I'm going to put Colin's team up because I know he put this up. So he put his team to play Ipswich.
Yeah.
He would hope that Areola, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Kilman, Tadibo, Emerson.
Yeah.
Somerville left wing, Paquetá, Alvarez, Soler, Kudus right wing, and Bowen up front. It would be Colin's preference.
I wouldn't disagree with that, other than Bowen on the right and Kudus up front. That would be my...
Okay, well, what I'm going to do is just put up here, Budgie. This is how we finished. No, we started our game against Brentford. And it's in a 4, if you can't see properly, Budge, it's in a 4-1-4-1 formation. So
I can see the formations, just can't read the names.
Sure. Well, we've got a back four here of Emerson, Kilman, Todibo, and Wan-Bissaka that started the last game. I think that's probably as likely to be the starting lineup, starting back 4-5, if you want to put it like that,
Yeah.
as is likely. I don't think Rodriguez is going to start in the middle of the park, though.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's safe to say we're probably going to have Alvarez in there, aren't we?
You would think so.
I don't know if he's going to play a 4-1-4-1. I'll leave it like that for now. If it comes into a 4-2-3-1 or whatever, which is probably going to look something like. I can't see Souček not playing.
Mm-hmm.
Now the question marks come. We're talking about Lopetegui here, not necessarily what we would do ourselves, by the way.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to second guess Lopetegui. Now the question mark is: does Paqueta play?
Mm-hmm.
After last week, is that something that's, player reacts, he hasn't had the greatest game, shaking his head, he's disappointed, it's okay, it's no problem, normal football thing, gets his head down, works all week, gets in the starting lineup on Saturday, or do you think his place is under threat?
Do you know what? I think with Lopetegui, a lot of players' places are under threat.
Yeah.
But I think in particular, we're talking about Paqueta. I do believe that he would have competition up there now because, like we said, Solare's been looking quite good. Somerville's looking quite good. So, yeah, I think we've got options there. Definitely.
Do you think he starts? You're guessing, obviously. Second guessing Lopetegui,
I'm
but
second guessing Lopetegui. I think he starts.
Okay, so we'll leave him in. Now the question mark comes to left-hand side. Mohamed Kudus started there last week.
Yeah.
Do you think he starts there this week? Do you think he starts at all?
So if the reports on the bust-up are correct, then I don't think he starts. I think he's on the bench.
Okay.
And I think Somerville starts in his place.
You think Somerville comes in?
I think Somerville starts in his place.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll do that. We'll say Somerville starts down the left-hand side.
I believe he would do, yeah.
Bowen will start on the right, therefore.
Yeah, in his strongest position.
And do you think Antonio starts up through the middle?
With the knowledge that Fulkrug isn't ready, it's going to be either him or Ings, I would think.
I don't see him starting Ings.
I can't really, to be fair, but he did at the Liverpool game, didn't he? Was it Liverpool?
Yeah, but in the cup.
Yeah.
He started Cresswell, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know I'm not saying Cresswell had the worst game up there, by the way, but I'm saying is he started Cresswell, he started Ings.
He was starting the fringe players, as we would probably call them.
They all got to get a game, ain't they? But this is a really important game for us that we need to win, right? We're in the context of
100%.
We need a top performance. We need all the best team out there, and we need the team that's going to win. And even if we'll go along with your Kudus is on the bench.
Yeah.
Maybe he plays, and who knows? But we'll go with Somerville and Bowen. And are we going to say Antonio starts?
I would say he will. Yeah. I mean, look, we're talking about a manager that's kind of he's already shown that he's ready to start Antonio in big games we need something from, or games that we're not expected to get something from even. And I think he's kind of, at the moment, he's got seniority over everybody, hasn't he? Up there.
Yeah.
Antonio. So
I will say that's our best guess for Loppy's starting 11. And in the chat, and if you're watching this video back, you can let us know in the comment section. Let us know what your teams are. What I've done, just for, I know Mick likes a 4-4-2. He likes the idea of a 4-4-2 with our squad. So I've done a mix 11, all right?
Yeah.
I haven't spoken to him, so I don't know. I've based it kind of off what he told me last week.
Okay.
So he would actually bring Foderingham in goal because he thinks Areola and Fabianski, respectively, have had their moments where they could have been better. And he actually thinks Foderingham's, decent kind of third goalkeeper. I don't know if he still feels that way, or if he's on the wind up, but I've put him in mix 11. He would have Emerson, Kilman, Todibo, and Wan-Bissaka as a back four. He wants to play a flat four across the middle. He'd put a Paqueta on the left. Alvarez, and I've introduced Soler in there. I'm second guessing Nick a little bit with that, to be fair. And he wants Somerville on the right-hand side. And then he would play Bowen and Kudus as two up front. But I must admit, what I was talking about with Kudus and perhaps the lack of tracking his player and losing, not following a player back in wider areas. But I do think without the ball, Kudus could drop into sort of the midfield, if you like. One thing about Kudus is he will stick his foot in the middle of the park, perhaps nip the ball off someone. And once he gets it and picks it up and runs forward with it, it's very hard to get it off of him. So you could really do a job like that. And as much as he might not track a runner onto his fullback, he would absolutely close down a defender and give them a horrid time chasing him down.
So basically, that would be more. That would look more like a 4-4-1-1 then.
Well, I think it's a 4-4-2, unless once you're defending, it could just kind of drop in. But when everyone's got to kind of drop in behind the ball, aren't we? Let's get in good shape and all that. Yeah. But yeah.
I mean,
and, if Lopetegui wanted to do that, he could even swap. He could even swap Soler for Souček if, Lopetegui felt that Souček was in a hot vein of form, really important in both boxes, etc., etc. Yeah, if you had Kudus and Bowen, or even if they pulled in wide positions, if Souček was the one who was arriving in the box to the crosses arriving, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world either. Anyway, it's just a fantasy 11. I don't see Lopetegui doing anything like that. Although he's tried just about every other formation, hasn't he? So you never know.
Yeah. I mean,
that was just for a bit of
fun,
really.
The 4-4-2, that's like a dying art in football these days. Nobody uses it. But at one time, it was the way to go, wasn't it? We all know that. 1975 and 1980 finals, they were all played 4-4-2 on both sides of the pitch.
That long ago, that's what I played most of the time. 4-4-2.
I mean, when we heard about the 5-3-2, 3-2.
Yeah, and we played 3-5-2 as well. But
we
played reminiscing now.
Yeah, I know, but even that was alien to me.
Yeah. So, team predictions and what have you all done? What about the scoreline, Budgie?
So this is where it's going to get tricky to be accurate.
Against the Premier League draw specialists.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we need to go 2 goals up for us to win the game.
Yeah.
I don't think a 1 goal advantage is going to be any good to us. I think Ipswich are strong enough to get that back. I'd like to see 3-1 at the worst way, 3-0 at best.
Okay, so what you opting for, 3-0 or 3-1?
Oh, have I got to narrow it down?
You can have it, both of them if you like.
No, go on. I'm going to go with 3-1 because I don't know that we're going to keep a clean sheet.
Well, I tend to agree with you. You've nicked my prediction again. So as much as I was saying earlier, I don't think we've been super creative all of the time. And as much as I've said, I'm not sure that they carry as much attacking threat away from home. I also think that they're perfectly capable of scoring against us and the way we leak goals at the moment.
Yeah.
So I do think that they will score one. But I'm trying to try and be confident this week and say that with all of the things that I highlighted earlier, perhaps, chance of a few misplaced passes from the likes of Calvin Phillips and perhaps Leif Davis being able to, one of our wide players, be able to get at him or perhaps have a mistake in him. The fact that I think our fullbacks might have a slightly more comfortable afternoon than they have had previously, then I'm going to say that this is the week that we see it start to click a little bit and say 3-1 as well.
3-1. It's quite a realistic outcome with the players that we've got, knowing that they are the new blood in the league. But the only trouble is we are talking about West Ham here, Jeff.
We are, and it's a bit scary that we're both confident enough to say 3-1, and I hope we're not just one of these disillusioned, deluded fans that are out there.
We're all deluded, mate. Look at the fucking we're wearing.
Anyway, it's been great stuff. Anyone wants to use the comment section, like I said before, let us know what your teams would be, what your score predictions are. If you've enjoyed what we've done, please like the stream, and if you haven't subscribed and you're watching this, please do subscribe to us. And looks like Flawless has just arrived in the building. So hi Flawless, how are you? And I'm sure you'd like to give us your prediction for tomorrow before we go. But thanks for joining us, Flawless. If you want to put your score prediction in for tomorrow, that'd be great, mate. So yeah, like I say, if you haven't subscribed and you're enjoying the content, please subscribe. Please tell your friends. Please share the content. And Budgie, do you want to give your channel a plug while you're here?
Well, yeah, my channel's Green Street Elites, but also, on Wednesday nights I do the Old School Hammers on West Ham Network with my mate Kieran over in Brisbane, Australia. So and obviously Jeff invites me onto some of his stuff, and also on Early Doors TV, football TV. I also appear on there from time to time. But I want to say thank you, Jeff, for your constant invites and stuff. I really appreciate it.
More than welcome.
Shame we didn't get to see Mick tonight, but next week I'm sure we'll be more fortunate.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be back. I'll give him a call.
In the chat. Thank you for everybody that's put in comments, and even for the late arrivals, thank you for doing that and popping in, and keep supporting the channel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Budgie. Flawless says he predicts a 2-0 loss, and yes, I didn't mean tomorrow. I did mean Saturday. Thanks for correcting me. And Di Canio, why hasn't he been sacked? Is that right? Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, but thanks for joining us. Please watch us back. Please feel free to use the comment section. Join us again next week. Thanks to everyone in the chat. It's lovely to see you all again. And until next week, come on, you Irons.
1-0 to the Cockney boys, 1-0 to the Cockney boys, 1-0 to the Cockney boys, 1-0 to the Cockney boys.